I want to welcome you to the Charly Crawford Podcast. Let's ride.
Hello, champ. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Charlie. Good to be with you.
It's good seeing you again, partner. Really good seeing you. How's everything in Nevada? It's been good?
Well, spring has sprung. So we've had good weather and nice and warm, and things are getting green, and cows are having calves, and it's a good time of year.
I talked to you the other day. You said you're getting some shoes put on after the winter, getting ready for Oakdale or any of them spring rodeos?
You know, we're seasonal up here, kind of off the beaten path. So at the end of the fall, after the ACTRA finals and the World Series finals, everybody kind of puts their horses up and goes through the winter. And then in the springtime, you put the shoes back on, you get back out and get them in shape and get ready to go again.
You going to some of the spring rodeos out there in California at all?
You know, I'm entered at Oakdale. We entered the rodeo, but we're going too because they have a gold card. So we had a weekend off. Jake wanted to go to the gold card and the rodeo. So it's just 2 hours over the mountain, and yeah, it's a good one. One of my favorites. Used to be the cowboy capital.
Yep. Back in the day it was, wasn't it? Big old sign and everything.
Yeah, and it starts off the spring run, you know, so brings back good memories. They have a big slack, and they run 2 go-arounds, except for the last 2 perfs guys, and old school.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember. I forgot the name of that restaurant where you can go in and have those sandwiches, and they had them named. One was Leo Camarillo. Remember that place we all went after slack?
Yeah, Feresi's, I think it is. And yeah, that was a ritual every year. I never missed that. And I had the Leo, which was the roast beef. The roast beef Leo, and it's about as good a sandwich as you'll ever eat.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you, so how have you been getting kind of prepared for some of these spring ropings? Like for me, I've been getting ready for the BFI, and, we was talking about that earlier, is I had Drigger send me his last 2 years of his BFI runs. Well, those 12 runs were the winning runs each year. So, for me, I'm trying to watch it, but also not completely try to imitate it, because what he can do is a little bit unexpected for where I'm at. But for me, I just like the good visuals where you can kind of get, where you can see like the rhythm of their run, where they're making those runs on each different type of steer. But like that's been a little bit of my mental preparation a little bit, as I don't get the reps like I used to. But what are some of the things that you do as spring's coming along that you're able to start getting prepared for the places you're going?
Oh, well, Jake's coming back up here from being down in Arizona for the winter, so we'll get a few days of practice. And I got to go Tuesday and Wednesday and go rope with a friend of mine that ropes really good. So I got some legit spins, and it's kind of my first little practices from being off all winter. But Oakdale's going to be fresh steers, and that's a whole different animal. Things are going to be moving fast, and the steer is going to be fresh. So I've been working on stuff started last fall that was starting to work pretty good, and I kind of had a little breakthrough in the things that I had been struggling with, and so I left off in the fall on a good note, And I've been, I rope the dummy in the barn every day, and I rope my donkey, and when the weather's good during the winter, roping a donkey is good because they have a short, quick little stride, and so you have to be sharp with your timing. So, that'll keep you pretty sharp, really. Even though you're not doing legit corners and stuff, you are making a corner, but to get ahead of that donkey, your swing speed has to be fast, and your delivery and your bottom strand has to be sharp to get him every time. So those are some of the things.
Have you been keeping up with the social media at all on the new world record? You see where Dustin Esquiza and JC Flake was 2.9 there at Austin?
Yeah, it was remarkable. I thought it was pretty cool that that JP, that's what we used to call him, was 3-2, in the first round the other night. I thought that was really cool. But it didn't last too long. That kid's really roping sharp, though. Man, he's like a Derek Begay clone, and but just has been really roping sharp. And then I missed the rodeo last night, and it didn't reload by the time I got to it. So this morning I turned it on, and I got to see the 2.9 and all the hoopla, and justifiably so. I mean, to break the 3-second barrier is huge, and the guy that you would expect to do it is the guy that did it. So that's the writing was on the wall, right?
That's what I kept thinking. It was a matter of time, because that guy's timing on when he can get that rope out of his hand and where they're kind of letting him throw now, you knew it was a matter of time before somebody was gonna hit that. And it takes not only just that, but also the right steer where he's gonna hit in a certain spot where there's gonna allow him to finish. And we've been waiting for it. We've been talking about it for a long time. Does anyone ever think they'll get to a 2-second run? And bam, there it was.
Yeah, they've been blasting them all winter. They've been making some good runs. I don't think they've won first, and just blew them away, but they've had a run at every rodeo that has advanced them, and you can see that they've made enough runs together now that their run fits together real good, and it is dirty fast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was it. That was just about as dirty fast as anything I've ever seen. Well, I'd love to talk a lot about your career. Love to talk about kind of how you also got started, because when we go down the list of the accomplishments that you've won, from which I think was so incredible was your 5 world title runs with Jake Barnes from the mid 80s, from 85, 86, 87, 88, and 89, having those 5 consecutive world titles, and then 2 more coming along there in 92 and 94. To have 7 world titles was something, the dominance between that decade that no one's ever seen, where 7 out of the 10 years you guys were the best in the world. And not only that, the jackpots, the NFR average titles 4 times, from 85, 94, 07, and 12, 29 NFRs, and then inducted in the Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame in 97. But you guys were it. People name their kids Jake and Clay, and the dominance that you guys had in team roping. And I think too, what was so cool was how you got your start. You being in the film business for however long, and getting to be alongside the Duke. And how did you get your start being in the film industry?
Well, I was raised in Southern California, and my stepdad, he was kind of a jack of all trades. He was pretty good at doing everything, and he was just old school cowboy. And he came from Arizona. He rode broncs, bulldog, and then started team roping. And like a lot of those guys, cowboys, they were doing Western shows there in Hollywood. And a lot of them went to Southern California to work in the movie business and make a good living. That was the land of milk and honey way back in the day. So and the best weather in the United States year round, So to be able to be raised in that atmosphere and in that place, I was just kind of in the right place at the right time in all aspects of my life. It's like doors were just open. And, but the movie career started because my stepdad worked in the motion picture business as a wrangler. So he worked on the Western shows there, wrangling horses. And a lot of as we started putting on jackpots at our house, which was part of the way that he made a living, a lot of the movie industry guys that wrote came to our jackpots every weekend. So it just so happened 1970 or 71 that they were doing the movie The Cowboys. They had an idea that they wanted to use half of the kids, which there was 11 kids, I think, on the show, and they wanted half of them to be cowboy kids and half of them to be Hollywood kids and try to blend them together to make it look authentic. So they came to our rodeo association, and all of the kids from our rodeo association tried out, but they tried out at our arena in my backyard, and they came to look at everybody, and then everybody went in for interviews and tried to read a script, and my brother and I, Sam, we were both picked to be on the show. And, a bunch of our rodeo buddies, junior rodeo buddies, got picked to do various things as well. So it was just in the right place at the right time and kind of in that environment and had that opportunity. And I got to work for 5 years straight, pretty much, nonstop. And it gave me a start kind of financially because I saved that money and I didn't do anything with it until I was ready to buy my first place to live out on my own. And so I used that as the down payment and to get the ball rolling there. And so it was just a real blessing, to get to do that. And just, Hollywood and John Wayne, I got to work with numerous actors that were famous actors. And you come to find out they're just real people, real dudes, but you're in a work environment. So basically I started to work when I was 9 years old, and I worked for 5 straight years, and it's a professional job. And so, you get up and you go to work and you do your job, you're expected to do it. And so I kind of grew up quick, so to speak, of the responsibility that I was called to do, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. I mean, who gets to go do that? Not very many people.
Yeah, that's one of the most iconic characters you played in the Cowboys was Hardy Fimps, where, we all of us grew up watching it, and my kids are going to grow up watching it. And, I got Creed all the way up to the part where the bad guy showed up, and he's like, yeah, I don't want to watch this part. But we got him right there along the line. So when we get a little bit older, we'll be able to inch in there a little bit further. But yeah, it was what I didn't know too was till later when you and I roped was how many films you also did after the Cowboys. Like think that you were in Gunsmoke, if I remembered right, maybe Little House on the Prairie and some other films. You was in quite a few other films also outside of the Cowboys and also with the Duke with John Wayne.
Yeah, I got to do another movie with him, Cahill U.S. Marshal, which was his production. We went to Mexico to do that. He did most of his later movies down there under the Batjack Corporation, which he owned that. And I was actually on a job doing a Walt Disney movie called One Little Indian, and I got a call from John Wayne's office saying we're going to do a movie where there's a part in it that as a little kid is my son, and would you be willing to come down and do that movie? And like, what an honor, you get a call from the Duke and he's wanting you to, when you end this movie, you're on a plane and get your vaccinations and and go to Mexico. And and go to work down there. So yeah, a lot of cool things happened in my life early on.
What was the Duke like? That's, I think, the $1 million question that every one of us that were just true John Wayne fans was, what was the Duke like?
You know, I'm kind of a people watcher and studier by nature. And so I was kind of looking for the authenticity about him as kind of an iconic cowboy character, and how he operated around a horse, how he got on, how he rode. He was legit, you know, so that was cool to see. And also, he talked the same, walked the same, mannerisms were the same on and off the camera. So it wasn't like he was putting on a show on the camera. That was pretty much him. And very, very nice man. I mean, courteous, respectable, you know, and he kind of commanded the presence, a certain presence around the movie set, where, you know, he was very respectful with women and kids, and kind of demanded that things be a certain way ethically, you know. So he was a true patriot for our country, you know, and a moral man, which you know, nowadays, and around Hollywood, even when I was a kid, a lot of people wasn't that way. I mean, Hollywood is known for kind of being Hollywood too.
Yeah, it's a lot different than when we're talking about when John Wayne was in Hollywood, to where a lot of the
Right.
stigma is what it's like now, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, when you got started, I remember always hearing your name, Clay O'Brien Cooper. So O'Brien, was that where did the name came? Wasn't there a history behind that, or was that your middle name? I couldn't remember.
Well, O'Brien was my stepdad's name. And because I was raised in the arena by Gene O'Brien, everybody knew me as the O'Brien kid, you know, Clay O'Brien. So I didn't think anything of it. Yeah, I'm Clay O'Brien. I mean, that's my stepdad. That's his name. This is his world, you know, and I'm growing up in it. And then the movie deal, I just used that name. I mean, I didn't think anything about it. You know, when they put my name on screen, it was Clay O'Brien. So, but as time went on and I started in my rodeo career and everything, there came a time when I was about, I don't know, probably 20 years old, 21 or 22 years old. My dad, I was close with my real dad, probably closer than I was with my stepdad. It was a different relationship. And I first got the inkling, you know, the message coming in, like, why are you using O'Brien and you're not using Cooper? Cooper is actually your legal name. And once I looked at it like that, and it kind of dawned on me that I was like, yeah, why in the world, you know, would I just be using O'Brien? I mean, that's disrespect to my real dad. And so immediately, and it was into my rodeo career that I actually put Cooper on the end of it. And but I respected my stepdad as well, and I went by O'Brien for a long time. So Clay O'Brien Cooper, that's how it came to be. I wanted to respect and honor both dads. They both gave me a lot in life, you know, to look up to, and just out of respect, you know, Clay O'Brien Cooper, that's who I am.
This episode is brought to you by NRS. NRS is your go-to for all things Western, from saddles and tack to boots, hats, apparel, and of course, ropes. They are known for carrying the largest selection of the freshest ropes, which is crucial whether you're just getting started out or already a champion roper. Shop in stores or online at nrsworld.com with my 10% off discount code CHARLIE to save on your next order.
when you were acting and going through the films, when did that start to kind of run its course? And then
Okay.
when was the replacement where, all right, I want to start roping and start putting that as a
Well,
passion?
well, as I was making those movies, uh, my heart was in roping, and he would tell these stories, right? And but a lot of the stories were current events about the ropers and the good ropers at our arenas, and it's like they were mythical creatures, you know. Larry Goss and Gary Mount, Kim Burke and Don Beasley. Those were the guys, and then Leo and Gerald and the guys, because I'm in Southern California and they're rodeoing, and whatever you're seeing in the sports news is about the Camarillos and all that, and everything local is about the local heroes winning everything. So that just built this dream in me. I'm like, man, what an exciting life. What, I'd love to do that. It's like you could be a hero. You could be one, somebody like they're talking about. So it kind of, that dream came from sitting around listening to all of those stories, and it was fascinating and kind of put me into fantasy land. So all the time I'm working, and I'm working on my skills. And there was a bunch of us kids when junior rodeo, and a bunch of us kids around our roping, and we would rope cattle on foot all the time. And we always matched for money. It was penny pots. And so we were forming teams, roping cattle, roping dummies, and always putting something up and trying to win. And so my mind was always in that arena, that way of life, and that's what I wanted to do. So about 15 years old, I grew a foot. My voice changed, pimples all on my face. I wasn't a little kid anymore. I was turning into this awkward young man. And so usually at that time, they can get 21-year-olds or 22-year-olds that look like little kids, look younger than they are, to play those parts. And the gangly stage, is not a really good stage for working in the motion picture business. But that was okay with me, because I wanted to move on to other things. And right about then too, about 15 years old, before I got my driver's license, my mom drove me out to Oklahoma to the junior championships. And I won the junior championship with Eddie Green, Ricky Green's cousin. And that was a big stepping stone, because it's all the kids in the Western United States, basically. And I was starting to get things figured out at 14, 15 years old. I had studied and really honed in on what the good guys were doing, and I just mimicked them, right? But I was starting to figure it out and getting to where I could catch.
Because you were also not only just getting it figured out on the heeling side too, but I remember it also where you roped calves good, you bulldogged kind of earlier in your career. Like, you was a good cowboy on the timed event and a lot of different events. Not only that, but heeling. Were you doing that along the lines too at that age, where you were roping some calves and steer wrestling a little bit by then as well?
No, I rodeoed for about 4 years professionally before I started roping calves and bulldogging. But there was kind of a transformation that took place. I went to 4 national finals in Oklahoma City, and I was probably touted, even though I hadn't won anything huge, I was probably touted as being capable of winning the world championship. And I always had encouragement from different people that was instrumental in my life, and they would tell me that I had the ability to be a world champion. And so, when you respect somebody and they tell you that, you tend to believe that that's possible. But I wasn't producing the results. So I made the finals, and I had chances to win, but I drove all the way home from Oklahoma City 4 years in a row back to Phoenix with no buckle. And so in 1985, that fall of 84, planned to rope with Jake and for the 85 season. And I had a mentor, Jimmy Cooper. I got to rodeo with him, and I got to watch him. And there were different things that happened in my life real early, and at that time that really gave me some information, and also kind of a witness, like it's being lived out in front of you, this principle. And what spoke to me about Jimmy Cooper is it was 100%. He gave 100% to everything he did. And it was just so evident. I mean, it was like an aura around him. Just like a junkyard dog. I mean, he's going to come at you without all that he's got in every part of his life. And when I drove home in 1984, and that 18 hours back, I did a lot of reflection, and if I asked myself, are you giving 100% like Jimmy Cooper is? And I would have had to say, absolutely not. I'm just, part of me is just having fun and partying and enjoying and I think that this championship is just going to come through talent alone, not that I didn't work at it, but I wasn't given 100%. So I decided on the way home, all right, I'm gonna practice more. And since I'm at the rodeo anyway, I'm gonna rope calves, I'm gonna bulldog, I'm going all in like Jimmy Cooper does. And so that's what I did. I mean, I just totally transformed the way I practiced, and my thinking, and I just went after it. But that flipping that switch, and that mindset and that work ethic, that's what made the difference. I mean, the next year, Jake and I took off, and I mean, it was like we just steamrolled everything all year long. It's just like they just couldn't beat us, and we just got on a roll and just got confidence, and then went into the NFR, first year at Vegas and all of that, and just went and did our job and got through it and got that first gold buckle. And, bam. Then there was a transformation after that as well. I mean, life has stages to it. And, but that's how my life just kind of went. I mean, there's like big moments where I learned something, and then I make a game plan based on that information and learning, and then you go again, and then you get to another place where you're needing that wisdom and you're needing that direction, and it seemed like, bam, it was there, and you take it and you go the next little spurt of life. So.
What was the journey like from when you started getting your card, when you first started going to the rodeos? Who were the guys roping with? Who were you looking up to and watching them and emulating as you were getting your start? Some of the guys that you were roping with from the time you went from Oklahoma City, before Jake, as you're kind of going through that transformation of, getting your partners to where you're starting to get the top of the food chain on the head side. Kind of a little bit of that transformation before 85. What was that like?
Well, I started out with Brett Beach, and when I was 16, I left home. And when I got my driver's license, and I bought me a brand new truck and a horse trailer and put a little camper on it. And I left California and I went to Arizona. Number one, there was a girl over there that since I was 10 years old, I had been writing letters back and forth. When I seen her when I was 10 years old, I was at the Roars Rope-a-thon, and I said right then, I said, she's mine. I'm going to marry her. And
You know what's funny about then and versus now is now would be talking about the young kids of that age. Yeah, I've been texting this girl for so
right,
back then.
right,
No, I was writing her letters, putting them in envelopes, putting a stamp on it, and mailing it to her house.
right. But that was part of it. And then there was really good ropings in Arizona. And the weather's good in Arizona too. You can rope all year round. And I kind of got hooked up with Brett Beach and George Arrows. And the girl that was my girl was Brett Beach's sister, little sister, Beth. So, yeah, that was where I was going. I was going to set up life right there, and I was going to court her, and I was going to make a career out of roping. And the two best, George Richards was maybe the best header out of Arizona right there, but George Eros and Brett Beach was right there with them. So I had the two best headers, even though we was amateur, and we amateured. I amateured for several years and just jackpotted and amateured across the, California, New Mexico, Arizona, Texas, Oklahoma. We got around, we traveled. We did it for a living and kind of just honing our skills, and getting better and getting better. And roping against different guys from different areas where, man, you go down into Texas, and that's where Don Beasley went, my hero. And but there were other guys down there that roped really good, Dan Fisher and guys like that. And then Oklahoma, there was guys that roped really, really good. New Mexico guys. And so I got to butt heads, jackpotting and amateuring on a daily basis with the not the elite guys, but they were the elite of each area. And you just get to know a lot of people, and you get to watch a lot of good ropers, and then you get to compete a lot. And so it was just kind of the groundwork or the boot camp, of a young roper at that time. And I was all in. I mean, we loaded up, we took off, and we went at it. And it was really good times. That's where I met Jake, out there on the road in West Texas. And first time I ever roped with him was at a 10 header at Digger Howard's in Amarillo. Him and I won that 10 header that night. It was on a Friday night. You could leave on Wednesday and you could go to a jackpot or a roping Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, get back home Sunday night, wherever your base camp was. And so that's how I started. And but my first, I started rodeoing with Brett Beach, and we had pretty much dominated all the ropings. We won Chowchilla. They used to have matches too with the roping, and we won all the matches. And him and I just really clicked. For 2 or 3 years, we went to all those ropings: Chowchilla, Oakdale, Riverside, Kingman, Prescott, Phoenix, Silver City, Wendy Ryan, everything that we could get to that was a big roping that we went to. We won that roping at least once.
Well, didn't I remember too? You guys won the BFI one year as well, didn't you?
Yeah, that was after we started rodeoing. This is still in our amateur days.
Gotcha.
So we were ready to turn pro. I mean, we had proved ourselves, through the jackpot arena that we could hang with these guys. And so we start off the year and we go to Scottsdale. Scottsdale was like the first rodeo of the season back then. We win third, and we win $1,699. And then we never won another check until we get to the 4th of July, and we had went to, Greeley, Cody, Red Lodge, Livingston, half a dozen. But we're up Sunday night at Cody, last team out in the perf. And up until that time, $1,699 was on our winnings. And I had the thought that night, I was so down and just so beat up, you know. Now you come from dominating in the jackpots and thinking you're all something, and then you spend half the year, the real pros are just beating you like a drum. That'll take a lot out of you. And I can remember sitting there before the perf and thinking, man, if I don't do good tonight, I need to go home and regroup. I know where I can go win, right? I know I can go with some jackpots and some amateurs, and I can build my bank account back up, and I can get some confidence. But as fate would have it, last team out, I think 5-2's winning the rodeo, and Brett comes across there and just hangs it on one, and just, 2 coils, drops. And this horse I was riding, he was a good horse, really good jackpot horse. Man, sometimes he was bad to go by, and man, he just hangs it on him, and it kind of catches him in mid-stride. I can remember the run like it was yesterday. And I mean, I just see the steer swap ends and start to go underneath me. And I just triggered, and I could see my shot clear, even though it was helter-skelter. And I just hammered this steer over the top of my horse's head and dally. And we're 5-1, and we win Cody. And it's like, bam, in a blink of an eye, at your lowest point, it just flips and it turns on one run. We go the next week and we win Salinas. And then we win Caldwell. We win, we just started clicking off wins. We won Ellensburg at the end of the year. So by the end of the year, we had caught up and got into the top 15 and placed at the Cow Palace, placed at Roseburg, which was at that time during the Cow Palace.
What year was this? Do you remember?
81.
81.
So, yeah, made my first finals my first year, but halfway through it wasn't looking good. And but one steer just turned the whole thing around, So it just proves you guys just keep backing in there and backing your ears till the worm turns.
Yeah, it's funny when you see that meme on social media where the guy's picking the ground to where he's digging for gold, and you got one guy that's still going, and then the other guy that was going, and then he said, man, I can't do it anymore, turns around and walks off. But it gives you the screen to where you can see what's in front of him, and he was that close to the gold. Where there's a lot of times where a lot of people's career sometimes might have been just one more strike and they would have gotten there, but then the guy that just kept on going eventually got it. And it's funny when a guy remembers that time where you almost quit swinging and then all of a sudden that light came, or the whatever it was, that break showed up. And then pivotal moments like that can be sometimes right around the corner.
Absolutely.
Hi, I'm Trevor Brazil.
My name is Corey Kuntz.
Hi, I'm Gino Nogueira.
I'm Luke Brown.
Hi, I'm Tyler Wade.
I'm Caleb Driggers.
Miles Baker.
Wesley Thorpe. Paul Eves. Patrick Smith.
We ask so much out of our horses that recovery is crucial, and that's why I use Equinety.
I've been doing this a long time. What I have in common with these ropers is we all trust Equinety.
I feed Equinety because I want to give my horses any edge.
My horse. My horse.
My horse.
My horse.
All my horses have the Equinety edge.
So then that started your first NFR, and then from the 81 up till 85, I guess the NFR would still be in Oklahoma City. Some of the guys that you were roping with from then, who were the guys that you were watching, that you were studying, that as you're growing? Because I've always watched your career. I always remembered you always studying and watching, from Jade Corkill to, when I started roping, you would watch all these different guys roping, and you just always be looking, seeing that little thing right there where you made them adjustments from the 80s all the way till, when even probably I'm sure still today. So who were
Well,
those guys then?
I studied them all, but the notable names was Leo. You know, Leo was in a class by himself in his era, and when we came in, uh, I would say his biggest challenge, three biggest challengers once we come in was which Walt was about 5 years ahead of me, and I really studied Walt a lot too. And but Alan Bach and myself and Walt Woodard, but Leo could still hang. I mean, he was still right, probably better than we were mentally. Uh, and but I was really blessed that first year when Brett and I got our cards. We started buddying with Jake and Al, and so from the get go, I don't know why, just because maybe that's his nature. But Alan Bach kind of took me in, and I got to go practice with him, and he let me ride his horses. And we spent hours and hours driving and flying. And for some reason, him and I just hit it off, and we could just talk for hours and break down roping and break down life and break down every aspect of the run. And he enjoyed it, and I enjoyed it. And, he had won the world in 1979. So he had wisdom that I didn't have. And his skill level and his work ethic was tremendous. And so I learned how to rodeo from alot. And he taught me how to enter, how to map out runs. Back then, you would go to 3 or 4 rodeos a day, flying everywhere. You'd work time zones. We would put on a piece of paper, the dates, the calendar, make your own calendar. And then you would have a morning slot, then you'd have an afternoon slot, and you'd have a night slot, and then you'd have an after slot. So those were all when they would run slack in the morning, or an afternoon perf, night perf, or slack after. And so that's how you set it up. And now you'd go through the rodeos and you see where all their perf times are, where their slack times are, and you can just pretty much map out everything that's going on. So now you're going to enter accordingly, and it's just whip and spur. I mean, we had a pilot, on call every day from the summer, from probably July 1st till the end of August, and we pretty much lived with that pilot. And it was 4 guys and a pilot, and then we had multiple rigs, 2 rigs at least, going here and there to meet us when we got there. So I learned how to do all that from Alan Bach. And then just the strategy. I mean, we were competing against each other, but we are also competing for one another as well. We were pulling for one another. And just the discipline, I just learned a lot of discipline and just, but I'm a studier. I mean, I study everyone's swing and their position and when they take their throws and how they finish. And not only that, but to study the headers, what's making the run come together. And we would break down as much of the header part of the run as we did our part of the run, because those angles, where they're reaching from, where they're hooking on, what angles they're taking, what's that doing to the steer, all of those little finite little pieces make a big difference. I mean, look where it is today, 2.9, right? The angles kind of have to come together to fit all that together in that amount of time. So it's been an evolution, roping is, but then when Jake and I come in, it was all like a storybook. It's like team roping exploded right at the time that Jake and I exploded. I mean, that's when the USTRC came in, the number system. It's like the teaching tapes, the notoriety, the explosion of the sport. It all just came together right in Jake and mine's heyday, and it was really cool to be a part of it. And you know, I'm so blessed from that today because it made names for ourselves, you know. And but everything that I am or was able to achieve was by studying other people's strengths. And Albach is huge in my life, in and out of the arena. So that bond is strong.
What I remembered about a lot of the what you and Al and Jake and a lot of the guys that I remembered was you guys were changing a lot of that tradition from the love and drink and fight and cowboy era. What you and Alan, Jake, and a few of you were doing was I started seeing more faith show up in the arena that was carrying a lot of what we're seeing now. You know, there was a culture shift, and I think you and Big Al and Jake had a lot to do with that helped a lot of people change their lives. Because there's a lot of guys that never really recuperated from the love and drink and fighting era, and they continued that. Well, then it was just kind of that self-destruction that kind of kept creating that when so many cowboys were when you guys came and shifted that culture, man, that changed a lot of people's lives. That changed a lot of people's future for what you guys led that era back then.
Yeah, that's a whole nother story. I mean, like I said, my life is like when doors closed and doors opened, it was almost like it was by divine God design is the only way I can explain it. You know, it probably one of the most low points of my life. I was actually heading real good. And I was about 12 years old. And I was starting to rope with the good guys around our area. And that's where I was headed. I was going to be a header because I was having success doing that. And I could do it, you know. So, but my dad was a header, my stepdad. And he wanted to go to those big ropings and he couldn't heel. So he just decided, you're not going to head anymore for me. And you're going to heal, and you're going to heal for me. So I was like shocked. It was like taking my world away from me, you know. And I didn't have a very good attitude about it. And so he gave me a couple days to kind of kick rocks and, you know, and then we came to an understanding. And I got the bitter end of that understanding. And I mean, I was whipped and beat up, and I knew what I had to do. I was going to be and kind of in that, I had kind of a God moment. And I don't know, you know, we all have our own experiences, but that was the first time I kind of felt like God spoke to me. Just in my thoughts, because I was thinking all of this stuff like, you know, what am I going to do? I was wanting to be a header. Now I got to be a healer. And man, I've just had a bad experience with my stepdad. And man, it's just, you know, life seems like it's really bad right now. And I just kind of felt in my thoughts, I felt like God said, hey, it's okay. I'm going to do something with this. And that's the first time I'd ever really had that feeling, you know. Even though I felt as a little kid, I would pray at night when I was a little bitty kid. I would pray every night. I would talk to this God that I didn't even know. And I wasn't raised in church. I was raised by this old school cowboy guy that, I mean, it was as far from church as you could get, basically. But I still, something on the inside. I heard him talk about this God, but I just kind of felt a presence, at times. So, uh, that I went down that road again. Bring me back to where we was.
Well, we were kind of talking about you and Al and a lot of the stuff that you were starting to
Okay,
see
perfect.
with Big Al, and a lot of the bond that you guys are creating, the getting on each other's horses. You guys were sharpening iron at that stage, and it was kind of that pre-Jake chime where you're kind of in the trenches, you're learning how to work at it, and you're kind of starting to see now where you guys are sharpening each other, and it's that kind of that lead up to where when you and Jake start roping, where the dominance starts.
Well, thank you for bringing me back. Well, Alan was really instrumental in this spiritual thing. He kind of brought me back. I had my dad. The closeness bond that I had to my real dad is he come to me one time, him and my stepmom Bonnie, and they showed me the first scripture I ever seen. They opened the Bible and they made a special trip to come down there to Beth and I, and they showed us in the Bible what the Bible said, that John 3:16 and Romans 10:9 and 10, and I thought back to that God experience that I had, and that feeling, that presence, my whole life, that I felt like God was there somewhere, and I acted upon it right then. I knelt down with my dad and my stepmom, and Beth did too, and we prayed, and I accepted Christ as my Savior. And but I wasn't strong enough to keep going. I knew what I did, and it was heartfelt and it was real. But at the time, I was pretty wild. I mean, and we all were, just to be frank. It was kind of just the times kind of called for that. I mean, a lot of people, just kids my age, was kind of into all that. But then Alan Bach changed. Alan was the leader. And I remember, so this is about 5 years later from this experience with my dad and accepting Christ. And I really felt condemned after that because I didn't really go on with that commitment. I just kind of kept living the lifestyle that I was in. And I felt so dirty and condemned, and I felt like God couldn't, he had every right to disown me if I didn't keep my word. So I'm living in that. It's always bugging me, it's just scratching on me all the time. And I'm having success out here rodeoing, right? But in life, I'm in that part of my life now, it's bugging me bad. But I'm buddied with Alan, and we're going down the road. And back then, you went from Sheridan, Wyoming, on Sunday night, and slack starts the next morning at Napa, Idaho. It's an all-nighter. So we drive all night, and we're just blowing and going, and you're tired, and you're about, I don't know, 8 o'clock the next morning, sun's coming up. Alan Bach, he gets up, just happy, and jerks out his Bible, and he starts reading some scripture, and then just point blank, I mean, he just looks right at me. I think I'm driving, and he just looks right at me and goes, "Hey, Clay, where are you with God?" And man, I thought, yeah, where am I with God? I said, well, Big Al, I accepted Christ with my dad, prayed a prayer. I really was sincere about it. But then I went back on it. And I don't think God would even take me back, really. So I got saved on the only scripture I ever seen, which is John 3:16 and Romans 10:9 and 10. And then the third scripture I ever seen is Albach flips through that Bible and it goes to 1 John 1:9. It says, if you confess your sin, he's faithful and just to forgive you and to cleanse you from all unrighteousness. And it's like, wow, that's my open door back. That's my open door. So as fate would have it, man, I took that chance and I acted on that scripture and I confessed my sins and I drew a line in the sand right then. I said, this is it. You know, I'm not perfect. I'm an idiot. But I'm going to go this direction. I'm going to go this direction. And I did. I started going to church. I started, and man, it was hard at first because they would ask you, I'm a just new fledgling Christian. I don't know anything other than I'm saved and I believe God. And they want you to do a testimony every place you show up. And so just by faith and I just scared as can be and just get up and do it every single time, But through time, God kept teaching me. And I also had a real God moment as well. When you get your first gold buckle, I've heard some people say that they see the buckle and they go, look what I did, or wow, is this all there is, or whatever. And when I've been waiting for that buckle, that first buckle, and they used to put your name on it so you didn't get it for a month or so. I'm watching that mailman come every day, wondering when my gold buckle's coming. And so when I got it and I looked at it, it was like I could see my life in retrospect. I could see how he'd fit all the pieces together. Even being raised, with a really tough stepdad, and all of the kind of the hardships and the conflict and this and that, but all the blessing that came from that. I mean, I wouldn't even have been a healer if I wouldn't have been raised by this old tough cowboy. I'd have never even been around cowboys probably, right? So, and then my partners, Jake, learning from Albach, studying Leo, and all of these components that came together for my benefit. Jimmy Cooper, the work ethic thing, it just seemed like everything come together and it all pointed to God. It was like, you remember that time when you was so down when you was 12 years old and I said I was going to do something and you thought this was the end of the world? It was all right here in this buckle. Look what I did. And I totally acknowledged it, could see it for what it was. And, God gave me a passion to heel steers by 2 feet, right? But that day when I looked at that buckle, I got my purpose. I got my purpose in life. It's like, all right, you gave me all of this and you orchestrated all of that. Now my job is to carry a mantle, carry it for you. So I took that really serious, that because I had found my purpose in life, that I'm going to be a champion and I'm going to work at this, but it's not going to be just for me. I want to honor God with it. Even though I'm still an idiot and I'm still a mess up and I'm still just a goofball, 100% of me is going to go this journey right here. And God's going to have to sort it all out. Right. So that's after the first buckle. What he gave me 7 of them. I mean, it just is astounding to look back and to see the blessing and all the people and all the things that had to happen. And I tell people, I do this church camp deal, and I tell these kids the last few years, I'm getting ready to go down there here in a couple of weeks to do it again. I'm like, I tried to mess my life up by making bad decisions so many times throughout my life. And I couldn't do it because God has been so good to me. He just wouldn't allow it to wreck my life. He just came right in because I was quick to repent. What, at least there's something about me. I might be, hard-headed, but if I make a mistake and then I realize I made a mistake, I repent. Even if it's against somebody else, I'll go to them and say, hey, listen, I messed up. I was in the wrong, please forgive me. And I think that's one of the biggest things that God honors. And that's what he says in his word, just be quick to repent and then get back upon the horse and whip and spur again, and he'll take care of the rest.
One of the things that I respected about your career and your presence, one of them was focus. As I was watching your career and watch how you handled yourself and your ability to focus and always be ahead of the run, which was phenomenal. But one of the things that I admired so much about your career was your humbleness. You could tell there was so much faith behind how you lived your life, with so much of your actions that spoke for you. The ability to always think before you speak. Those were things that, were so admirable, because we're also seeing too in the generation, and we've seen it, for generations, all the way from back to, King Saul, where when a guy gets to where you're being successful and then it's all about you, that can be, it's easy to do that. And we also see that too, where there's a very flamboyant way of being able to accept world titles and success. But yours spoke so loud with your humbleness, with your ability to give God praise. And that was something that it's funny to see how both can thrive. But, with this industry, how you did it was so welcomed by so many people because of how you handled your success in such a humble way.
Well, thank you for saying that. And I know, like the concentration thing and the all that. I think really the truth of the matter is that I'm not a very good multitasker, which might be a blessing, right? It's easy for me to focus because I'm not very good at putting a lot of spinning plates and spinning wheels into play. So it's really a place of refuge for me just to lock in, to clear the mechanism and get in my own little box. That's my world. Nobody else can get in there. And there's a part of me that's a little bit of a recluse. It's a little bit of I'm okay being alone with myself. It's not that I like myself. It's just that I'm okay with being around people and visiting, but I'm okay being myself too. So part of that, what you might call concentration, is just crawling off in your own little world, and it's just you. It's just you doing your job, and I figured that was the best place to be, because if my thoughts were about healing the steer by 2 feet, it wasn't anywhere else that was unproductive. I mean, there's so many thoughts that can come into your head that are not productive for you. They have nothing to do with healing the steer. It has nothing to do about riding your horse, being in the right spot, getting in time, seeing the shot, putting your bottom strand down. There's so many thoughts that can come in that have nothing to do with that. But it's those thoughts, it's those tangible thoughts that have to do with roping the steer that actually produces the result of roping the steer. So, and another thing is that I'm just kind of simple-minded. I mean, I'm not very smart, I everything I've learned or the things I use are things that I've heard people say, and I've never come up with original thing in my life, I don't think. I just use what's available to me and information and what I see displayed that works. And now the selfish part of me is I'm after results. In my Christian walk or my going into the arena and competing, I'm after the results. I'm there to win. I want to win in life, and I want to win in the arena. I want to win on a daily basis in every part of my life. And I think I enjoy analyzing and breaking everything down to try to figure out how to win in every area. So that's kind of like a daily challenge. We live one day at a time, and I learn so much all the time because I'm wanting to learn about everything. So it just intrigues me. But yeah, and the humbleness, you know, I think that's just the realization that, man, I really can't attribute any of my success to me, because it's been everything else. It's been other people and God and all of these, things that happened in my life that I it's fun to enjoy, but I didn't have any really part of it. I'm not no Einstein. I'm so far from that. So, but you find little nuggets in the Bible where it says, God uses the foolish to confound the wise. And he takes the foolish things of the world, to just, bring things together for what he wants. So at the end of the day, if I can live my life and honor God and please him, then he deserves all the credit. I didn't create me, he created me. So and that was a 50-50 too. I had kind of a heart to heart with my mom here last year, and she said, it had to be God, because it was 50-50 whether you was coming into the world or not. And so when you get to looking at that, and then you look at the Bible that says he knew me before I was even in my mother's womb. Well, there was there was a plan in place, because she was real close to not bringing me into the world. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Yeah, it's wild to think, when we talk about how God can use anyone, he can truly use anyone, and the platform that he gave you, not for us, most of us not even knowing, that there's a 50-50 chance to you not even coming into this world, God had a plan for you, and when you got here, and, I think about the opportunity that I have, and that God's used me in ways that not in a million years I would have ever thought that God would be able to use me in any way. And it's wild it can be anybody, because it's so interesting to see how he works, because who you can touch is probably someone completely different than who I can touch. And who Alan can touch is probably someone completely different than who Jake can touch. And it's just, when you look at how God works and how he's able to use everyone in a certain place, everyone has a strength that's going to be able to change someone's life along the way. And yeah, it's wild. It truly is when you sit back and look at it.
One time I remember I'm on an all-night drive. It's about 1:00 in the morning, and this is way back where, radios weren't like they were today. So I'm just searching I'm kind of tired. I'm searching on this AM station, and I'm just turning the dial trying to find something, and then bam, it hits real clear too. In the middle of nowhere, and it just picks up, and it starts talking about all of these ministers that had these church camp meetings, and they led thousands to Christ, this and that, and this and that. And then it goes and it says, and then there's this one guy, and his name is so-and-so, and you don't even know his name. And it says, and he led one person to Christ. And it's kind of profound, like, okay, what? He said, but that person was Billy Graham. Mm. So it was like, yeah, hey, we're all
One and done.
right. Yeah, his account is going to have all of that.
That was a home run.
You know, and the Bible talks about the crowns and the there's a reward in heaven. And I don't know what I'm going to get, but I know some people that are going to get a lot. You know, I was at the finals, my wife and I. She knew this lady in Stephenville, really sweet lady. They had a Western store there for a period of time. And she had a friend that had brain cancer. And she'd get done with her day working all day at the Western store, and she would go visit with that lady 2 or 3 hours in the evening and just sit with her. And at the time I was at the NFR, you know, I'm a big dog. I'm at my 25th national finals. I'm roping for a world championship. I'm going to go speak that night at the Cowboy Church after the rodeo. And my wife is talking to this lady on the phone. And I'm like, man, they think I'm something. People want to put me on a pedestal. You know who should be on the pedestal is this lady that goes to meet with this lady with the brain cancer. That's the hero, not me. I'm just an idiot, you know? I'm just blessed. I'm just healthy and blessed and doing what I want to do. And this lady, she's the hero. Our world is so flipped upside down with what we think success is, and, you know, pride and do this and do that. And it really is the servant and the humbleness and that's what I really got from Alan Bach as well. I listened to your podcast yesterday, in fact. And man, what pours out of that guy is just the truth of what life's all about. You know, it is about humble things. It's about God things. It's about loving what God has given us and loving each other. All this other stuff is just it's a narrative. You know, we've been fed this narrative for years and years and years about what life is supposed to be like. You know, and it's all a lie. The only thing that really is the truth is God, is His world, it's His people. It's imperfect people just trying to do it His way. That's what life's all about. That's what really brings the most reward.
That's one thing that I feel like the rodeo. I love rodeo. I love the industry. It's been some of my greatest memories that I've ever had. I've been able to meet some of the greatest people that God could ever put me in front of. Totally appreciate so much with what this industry has helped me and my family been able to accomplish. But I think when rodeo becomes the false idol, when career comes first, I think what happens is when rodeo becomes your God, then that's when I've seen so many downfalls, so much self-destruction. When God's not first, then that's, there's a line of God, wife, family, then career. And man, I've been there on that line of it myself when career was first. And, I've seen the self-destruction of things that I have done through my career on the way there, to where when I ended, it was like, my curb strap's going to get a little tighter at the end of this career here. I love succeeding, and I love being able to head steers, and I love progressing and making the NFR and doing what I love to do. But this is going to be in a category. I'm not going to let it get to where it's gotten before. So when my curb strap stays snug, that's one thing that I'm tried to make sure that that was learned. That wasn't natural. That was all something that that it took me years and screwing up and stuff like that. And it's still, trying to keep those categories in line. But there was a few years ago, me and Trey did a school, and we went and visited somebody at the hospital. And, it was one of those things where, kind of what happened and come out where it was, well, there's, once rodeo was gone, that was his identity. And that identity was the world championships. That identity, well, it was not there no more. And so things of self-destruction took its place. And I tell you what, when I came home after that, because it was in a place where I was familiar with, and it was one of them on the flight back to Texas, that could have been me. Like that was a line right there where, man, it was a little tough for me to kind of see that. That was tough for me to reflect on, because if God wasn't here, that was almost like watching a dream where I woke up, and that could have been me if God didn't step into my life and be able to help me with where the priorities in life needed to be. And that was a big one for me, because I think that is the difficulty I feel like with career first is, man, you're going to have some success, and man, the narrative of, the spotlight and the reels on social media and the interviews on the Cowboy Channel and the sponsors and all the things is going to keep coming. And man, you're going to be on this pedestal, but then what happens when it's not? And we've seen it a lot. And I think it's not the industry so much. I believe it's where the priorities go, to where that's something that a curb strap needs to be pretty tight on.
Yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree.
This episode is brought to you by Ryan Studdard with Oak Ash Realty. Ryan, the broker and owner of Oak Ash Realty, is someone who understands the land, lifestyle, and the work that goes into it. Whether you're looking for acreage to run horses and cattle, a place with room for an arena, or a home that fits your family just right, Ryan has the experience to help you find that perfect property that fits your needs. If you're looking to sell and want an experienced broker that understands the nuances of farm and ranch properties, Ryan has that track record. From ranch land and ranchettes to residential and investment properties across North Texas, Ryan knows what matters. I've had the experience of working with Ryan multiple times over the last few years, and I can attest firsthand to his knowledge and experience. If you're thinking about buying, selling, or just want a straight answer about land or real estate, give Ryan Studdard a call at 817-683-9505 or check him out at oakandashrealty.com.
And it, like you say, it's kind of a balancing act, because you can work in and out of that. I struggled with it for years, but hey, like I said, it's one day at a time, and it's learning your routine. If you can get up with God first and get some word in you and get some truth in you and some reflection, and for me, that kind of sets the tone. I can keep God on my mind all day if I do that. But hey, 2 or 3 or 4 days in a row, I get too busy, and the first thing I go to do is my work and not God. Then, now your mind's on your work all day. Now, and we wonder why we struggle with things. It says to seek God first, and then he'll take care of everything else. So to me, that's easier than me struggling with it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, to go back to the little kid inside of me again, when I was growing up, watching what you and Jake was starting to do from 85 on, I was a fan, and I still am. Like, I still love watching those videos of you guys. I wore out the mega match tapes. I've wore out the Winning Edge with Jake and Clay. I've wore those out, like, to where I can memorize things that you guys would say before you'd even say it. And, so when you're going back to 85 and getting that first world title, 86, 87, 88, 89, I mean, that dominance of that era, what were some of the things that were credited to it? It's got to be head horses, heel horses. I mean, I remember Ike. Oh my God. Everyone remembers Ike, your buckskin heel horse. But from 85 to 86 and kind of getting started at that era, what were you feeling like the dominance was there? Was it horses? Was it your guys' worth ethic? What run were you feeling like? And what was it about Jake too? That, man, you talk about a guy that I always think of, the movie Gladiator. Or I think of guys that led people in battle that had swords and a shield. Like, I visualized Jake Barnes back then leading that charge. That guy was just such a immense competitor. And between the two of you, that chemistry you guys had through that era, it was so impressive. But talk a little bit about from 85, 86 on, kind of what was it that sticks out that you can kind of remember through that 5 consecutive world titles?
Those weren't easy years, all of them. Man, we was up against some real competition. I mean, Mike Beers, Al Bach, Bobby Harris, Dennis Gates didn't win a world championship, but Dennis Gates was game on.
He was a thorn. He was a thorn.
There were some guys that didn't get notoriety that were just bad to the bone.
Yeah, the mule was one of them. Woo, what that guy could do back there.
Big time. So that was through the kind of first 5 championships. And so we had some battles, and we had some tough years where we just butted heads just all year long, and then it just came down to the finals, and then maybe just come down to the last 3 steers. But yeah, Jake was the war horse of the team. He was the energy and the tenacity and just the unwillingness to not be beat right down to the last steer. And, I was just me. I'm just kind of in my own world, and I just heeled 2 feet. So I just trusted that, we could get the job done. I got Jake Barnes, and it ain't over till it's over. And some of those just was nail biters down to the last. So, and then, a couple of them was pretty remarkable too, because we went in like one year we went in 25,000 down, and then one year we went in 30,000 down.
And what were the day monies at that time, just so people know?
They paid 5 or 6,000. So you're down half the rodeo, you're 5 go rounds down, and just battle back. And, and nowadays it's even more that way. You can win so much, the money wasn't the same, but you could still make up a lot. Nowadays, like, you can win more money at the NFR than you did all year long. So nobody's safe nowadays. But yeah, we just, I think we just had a confidence that when it got down and dirty, that we were gonna fight you to the last breath, and it takes that. Hey, and those guys are that way too, that we were up against. Those guys are. I mean, you think Al Bach ain't that way? Al Bach is the ultimate warrior. I mean, 30 national finals, right? So I got 29, But I am so happy with 29, and I'm so happy that he has 30 because he deserves it. He was a war horse. I mean, nobody stayed in the game longer, and the work ethic and the time and the sweat and the tears put into winning is that guy. I mean, he's the mark of excellence, you know. And we, through our careers, you know, we made each other better, really. I mean, we pushed one another. And so in those years that we didn't win it, he was winning it. So, yeah, there was good battles. I mean, I got to rodeo with such good guys, you know, and such great ropers. Bobby Harris, you know, is one of my favorites. We just had so much fun when we were young, and then we battled out for some championships and just really, you know, they're part of life. You know, you see it on the movies, Warriors, you know, back in the day, and they loved going to battle, right? Well, we did too. Man, we just loved going to battle. I mean, that's what made life fun, is like go out there and practice and then go head to head and just get after it. So that was the name of the game. But yeah, I had the ultimate warrior on the heading side, you know. And I got my whole career, I got to rope with the best headers in the world. I mean, which it's such a luxury, you know. They say you've done all this winning. Yeah, but I have the very best of the very best on the other side setting all that up. So, yeah, most of the credit goes to the setup. I've always said that the header's job is the hardest game, and that's the hardest job in rodeo. Of all of the events, the header's job is the hardest. You just have to do so much. I mean, you've got to be right on the start. You got to take the right shot. You know, some shots call for 2 coils, some call for 1, some call for go right to the hip and knock him down. You know, you've got to do so much, and then you gotta handle the steer where he can be readable, and you can get to him, and then you got to finish. You know, and then you got to be the quarterback of the team, and some of the best partners I had was the motivators, you know, like Matt Tyler and David Key. There was with Jake and I, there was hardly anything said between us. We didn't even talk. We just roped. But I had partners that I talked with nonstop. But then I had guys like David Key and Matt Tyler. They were motivators. They would talk to you on the way to the rope and like, hey, we're kicking butt. We're kicking butt today. And then you might be down and they're still just up. Hey, we're kicking butt today. We're getting them today. Our run is coming together. You know, when you're out there on a day-to-day basis, all of those things are pretty important because it's easy to get down. I mean, in 1 or 2 steers, you can get down low. And then in 1 steer, you can get right back. So roping is such a, you know, so yet that partnership, I've had partners that I was able to feed off of and learn from, and partners that know, you know, the best thing is if you know that your partner believes in you. Mm. That's a big thing. You know, if your partner gives you that, if he gives you the thought that he don't believe in you and then you're down, it's hard to get past that. I mean, my main guy don't even believe in me, you know, and I'm not believing in myself, and he don't believe in me. I mean, that's a bad place to be. But for the most part, I had guys that believed in me. You know, they knew that I could turn it around, because you're going to have highs and lows. You're going to have peaks and valleys. Some days it's going to be great. Some days it's going to be not great. So that partnership aspect is, and how you treat your partner. You know, I learned a lot about that. I mean, I'd rather praise my partner and be on his team and encourage him if things are going bad on his side than I would, go the other way and try to put more heat on him and more pressure on him. I mean, it just don't make any sense.
One thing that Creed and I, my son, we've been watching, I've been introducing him to Rocky. And we've been watching Rocky 1 and going along to his favorite's Rocky 4, which I think most of us are. I love that one too. But, one of the things that I grew up watching was Rockies, and that was the heart of Rocky Balboa was something that, everybody admired. And that just seemed to be so much you and Jake through them 80s where you guys, as beat up as you were, found that strength in the 10th round to where there's no giving up. It was taking them ones to the chins and being able to battle back from a $25,000, $30,000 deficit and be able to figure out how to win the fight, how to win the battle. And, those were things we all in our industry, being team roping fans, compared to the Rocky Balboas with what you guys were doing in team roping. And talk a little bit about too, though, is, when a guy goes to winning that much, everyone's first question is, all right, well, when there's a dynasty put together, when you and Jake split, what was it that there was a split and then there was a come back together again? Because Bobby Harris, he talked about the other day about, yeah, we got to roping around, him and T, they got to roping around on each other. And then they came back and, and so at that time, I remembered when you guys split, that was like, what? that was something, back then as we were all fans. But I mean, was there chemistry with other guys? Was there something to, because that's one thing that I know Bobby Harris was talking about is you were looking for that electricity. Your second partners a lot of times might be who you were winning more money with the jackpots, thinking, well, is this the electricity that it needs to go in another direction? And then when you guys come back, I mean, you could see that chemistry was just there between the two.
I think it mostly ran in head horses, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, I was always looking over the fence because I was always studying the competition and studying the heading as much as the heeling. And at times I could see, the horse equation and that guy, and he's spinning them off. I mean, he's spinning them off. And my guy ain't spinning them off. And the reason why he's not spinning them off is not from his lack of talent, not because he forgot how to do it. It's because just for one reason or another, he's between horses. This horse isn't giving him the go. He's having to battle that horse deal. But, and there's a part of me that is ashamed of that. But there's a part of me that also, I had to feed my family, and I was only after results. Like I said, I'm wanting to win first every time. So I want the fastest spin. That's what I'm craving. And if that other guy's doing it, and I can be a part of that, if I got enough clout to go say, hey, you want to row? Well, then I know for a short period of time or for however long that horse lasts, I'm going to get that repetitive bam, bam, bam. I'm going to get that spin. And so if I can catch 2 feet behind it, I'm going to win. I'm going to win. I'm going to win. And we don't drive all night to lose. We drive all night to win. I mean, and you have to win, especially back then. You had to win. I mean, you can't go 3 or 4 weeks or a month and not win. I mean, you got a mortgage to pay, you got bills to pay, so yeah, in that aspect of it, it's kind of a hard way of looking at it. And I'm not proud of the fact that maybe there's a ditch on both sides of the road, right? I mean, you could be too conservative and never look over the fence and just stay mediocre as a team. Or you can swing for the fences and you can go. I was never afraid to go ask the best guy out there and just say, hey, In fact, when you and I roped, we roped through the winter. And we had some success, but I was on my comeback, and I was thinking, you know, in my comeback here, I don't really know where I'm at because I laid out 3 years. But if I'm going to have success, I'm going to need one of those top tier guys. And at the time, there was 2 cliques. There was the Arizona clique, Begay, Rogers, and then there was the Texas clique. There was Chad, Clay Tryon, Luke. So I knew somehow or another, I'm going to have to work my way back in to one of those cliques to actually be a top 5 team healer, right? To get where I'm wanting to go. So, you know, when we was out there when we went to Tucson and all that, you know, I'm just riding around with Chad, and I know there's no way he's going to rope with me. He's running with Jake Long. Jake Long is just hammering him first hop pretty much every time. I mean, whiz kid, but I wasn't scared. I'm just like, hey, Chad, if there's a chance of roping, I would like to rope. I know there probably ain't much of a chance, but hey, I'm going to swing for the fence and try for the best guy. So lo and behold, I get a call 2 weeks later, and he's like, champ, we're on. So was that, you know, I felt bad telling you that, but at the same time, I felt like if I'm going to go where I want to go and need to go, that's what I need to do. And I knew you were big enough, and I'm really nobody. I mean, yeah, I got a name, but I ain't proved it in 3 years. So I know you can get a good partner. So I know you're going to be all right anyway. Plus, you're just the kind of guy that you're just going to brush it off. And I tell you, an aspect of this deal that's kind of good is that once you get cut, it puts a fire in your belly. And it's like, hey, you cut me, I'm going to get a good partner. I'm going to kick your butt. There's a part, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a
Yeah.
part of it too. It's like,
Yeah.
game on. And you're that
Yeah.
kind of guy. You're like, hey, yeah, come on. But then you're a good enough guy. You just said, okay, I'm not first partner, but let's rope second partners. And I'm like, yes, Charlie. Now I got the 2 best worlds. I got Chad and I got Charlie. Yeah, come on.
There is, you know, like for me, that was that opportunity to, you know, when I got to rope with Big Al, and then I got to rope with you, and I got to rope with Patrick Smith, you know, those were, you know, for one, so many of my idols was through you guys, but also too was, man, just sitting in the rig and listening to the stories, you know, how Jake did what he did, you know, all the guys that you rope with, you know, your knowledge, being able to see where those angles were. Same way with Big Al, you know, when I was able to have that opportunity to get around those guys that had so much more knowledge than me, it was like please just be quiet and listen and soak up every little thing, because who knows how this long could last. But man, when I leave this, or if it goes wherever it goes, man, there's knowledge here. There is something that wherever I'm going, I'm getting everything I can to because, you know, the one thing I guess I would credit my success with my career was there was a lot of evolution. You know, I grew up watching Charles Pogue, Jake Barnes, Matt Tyler, you know, had a lot of swings that was mainly for running to the hip, setting up those runs, because that was back in the consistent era. If you hit the start, rode a good head horse, and was consistent, man, there's a lot of monies to be won. Well, then Speedy showed up, and it started getting tighter and tighter. You know, then Clay Tryon. Then you started seeing the descendants off what Speedy started with Driggers and Clay Smith, and then you had Chad there for a while. And so it would just kept on getting a little faster and a little faster and evolving and evolving. And the amount of times that I was always behind that trend, you know, but I had to study with whatever they were doing. And that's what I went home to, man. When I would see what they were doing, okay, their hands higher. Okay, their horse ain't running quite that hard because they're using their rope, you know, and just all those little things, to where that was the one thing I would say that at the end of my career, I probably roped better than I ever roped in my life, was because of the study and what you guys did all the time when you were watching those guys, when you were studying the angles and, and just being able to be around the best in the world and see how they think. Everyone thought differently. Everyone had that different competitive edge of how they were going to battle. And man, and then I look at, where I am now and the thankfulness and gratitude that I have for being able to be in the rig with you guys and now trying to teach people how to rope was the amount of knowledge I gained from you guys. And then how do I apply it to be able to continue to get better was just something that God placed in my life to where as I'm doing clinics, I understand what it's like to not understand those little things that you guys knew. And so that's what the questions I would ask you guys and the studying that I would do with you guys. So when someone comes and like, hey man, how do I hold this rope? And like, look, man, I understand we've all had to learn how to do different things and tear a roping down and build it back up. And, that's some of the stuff that I remembered. And for a lot of times too, was like you and Big Al and Patrick and a lot of the guys that I got the opportunity to rope with. What you guys had taught me so much too was we were better friends after we roped once we got to know each other than I was before we started. And that was always so admirable. That was always something I loved so much was that those were business opportunities. But the opportunity and the friendship that we gained, by being around each other and being in the rig and getting to rope and getting to learn it was so cool to see that the friendship was stronger after the partnership was something that I learned that, man, I truly, truly appreciated.
Yeah, I think that's the part that I think I miss about rodeoing the most is it's kind of a fraternity out there. I mean, it has its own world, and you're all going to the same places, and you're traveling, you're going all through the year together, and you build friendships, and that's one of the fun parts of rodeo, and is that camaraderie and friendship, and building those relationships. So, yeah, I've got 40 years of that, of those memories. I got so many good memories and stories about all the guys that I've rodeoed with, headers and heaters both. It's
the coolest one that I think of all of them. I mean, colors they have to be. I would say they would have to be in certain sequence, but Jake, you and Jake are just such an iconic name together. That's a name that when you hear Jake and Clay, everyone knows that's a household name. They know who we're talking about when they say Jake and Clay. But one of the most entertaining partnerships I thought was you and Begay, because the picture on social media of when you held him when he was a little kid, and then later you guys getting a rope at the NFR and having a remake, I think that same picture 20 years later, I think if I remembered right, that was maybe the time bracket. That was probably one of the most entertaining partnerships, with seeing that kid looking up to you and then his chance to get a chance to rope with you at the NFR and reenact that picture from so long ago. That was probably one of the more entertaining ones that I remembered.
Yeah, that was so cool. I didn't even know that picture existed till we're going to the finals, and then he sends it to me. I'm like, wow, yeah, we need to recreate that. But that was a cool partnership. I mean, it was so special. Well, I got cut. Chad cut me, and so leaving the finals, I'm driving home, and I asked Begay to rope, and he texts me back and says, yeah. So, I was talking about the two clicks, right? I mean, I got to ride Chad till he wanted to do something different. And then
because you guys almost won the world. You guys were right there as well. You and Chad, if I remembered right, one year, I think 2012, maybe.
Chad won the world.
Mm-hmm. But I think you were right there, if I remembered right.
Yeah, I was 1,100 behind Jade. So that was a real special year, really. I mean, because we buddied with Driggers and Jade the whole year. I mean, we we pushed for one another. We're back-to-back teams, and we pushed for one another. Meaning, he pushes for you. He's the next team up. He's got to go get his horse, get his rope, get everything set, ride in the box. Usually if you're at the front of the list, you push for the guy at the back of the list, or vice versa. No, we pushed for each other, team to team, back to back. So it was like our two teams against the world from the beginning of the summer on. And I mean, we just hooked up, and Chad and I caught up because they was in the lead, and then we were right behind him, just all the way to the end. And then Jade wins the world on his team, Chad wins the world on his team. And I was just so happy to get Chad across the finish line, really. I mean, it would have been great to win the world, but I was almost just as happy that I got my man across the finish line. And we won the average. We had a good finals, and they had a great finals, and we were 1-2. That was a special year. But Begay, I got to jump from the top click in Texas to the top of the click in Arizona. So I was just so fortunate. And man, Begay is such a special partner. That guy is, number one, he's got a special demeanor about him. He's funny. He's dry humored. He's really sharp, and smart. And he's analytical, those are all qualities I love the best about a person, right? And so I just totally enjoyed it. Just fit with me perfectly. We had such a good time. And then the roping part, that guy, as good as anybody ever that I've ever seen, in every setup that you go to, he knows he takes the right shot to win at every setup. It may be a hard setup and he's got to just throw at the barrier. Yeah, he can do that. It might be one coil, kind of that mid-range shot right across there. Yeah, we can do that, or it might be, hey, all we got to do is go knock this one down for 10 grand. We can do that too. So just that ability, and then that confidence that, that guy over there, he's going to spin you the right steer at this place, because they're all different through the year, right? And some guys get so hung up on everything. I mean, even the best guys in the world get hung up on it. Do I ride back? Do I ride in the box and back in there on the head and side with a big loop? Am I going to reach? Or do I shorten it down? Am I going to catch up? There's all that stuff that can go on. None of that goes on with Begay. I mean, he just builds his loop. He knows where he's going to rope the steer. He scores, hits the barrier, pulls the trigger at the right time. And what was cool is he's a lot like early Jake. Jake was so fast, and the way he pulled his slack, he'd pull the slack between his hands, take it out between his hands and pull it to the horn while he's going 9-0 to the left. So a lot of times steers would speed up through the corner. You know how they're supposed to slow down? Well, in our heyday, they speeded up. I mean, he'd ruin a heel horse because he'd get your horses just running off because they got to run hard to get to the corner, and then they got to speed up to go through the corner. Man, them horses got on the bridle and got chargy, It'd be hard then you draw a really good one, and man, it was hard to hold them off because they're used to going so fast. Well, Begay's a little the same way because Begay didn't pull slack. Begay times his move and just a little slack, but almost straight to the horn. Bam, he's got their heads just right now, and he's in front of them. Just, that corner happens fast, and it's controlled because the rope is tight, and you can be fast. And he is really actually easy to heel behind for that reason, because of that timing and when he was riding Swagger, it was sharp, really sharp. Swagger knew him to a T, and he knew Swagger to a T. And I mean, it was just game on every time. You knew you was in it. You're going to get a shot for first or second just about every time you went.
Hello, Ropers. I'm excited to be heading back to the ranch at NRS in Decatur, Texas for another beginner headers only clinic, April 24th through the 26th. If you're a number 3 header or just getting started, this clinic is built for you. It's 3 full days focused on the fundamentals that matter. Whether you're working toward your first win or just looking to rope smarter and safer, this is a great time to do it. We're only taking 10 headers, so spots are limited. Don't wait. Head over to charlycrawford.training, click on the clinics tab, and lock in your spot today. We'll see you in Decatur.
Yeah, if I remembered right, you guys were also right there close at the end of it as well, where I thought that was going to be another one that was going to fall your way as well when you rope with Begay.
Well, that was my last NFR. That was my 290th steer. I was the last team out. So when you're the last team out, that means you've battled your way to a chance. And I think we had to win the day money, as it turned out. I think we won third. And that year, it's so tumultuous with that average. And on that last day, if there's where you're sitting, if it all played out, you'd know where you ended up. But usually, because of the variables, those guys that are in the average good have done good all week, and they've won enough money, but they still need to place in that last day money. And so they're having to go at it. But you need them on your side, as a team. You need them to catch so that they stay in the average where they're at. But that'll let the guy, come up and get you from behind. So that's kind of what happened to us, or happened to me both years with Chad and with Begay. But that's just part of it.
Mm-hmm.
You just it all comes down on that 10th steer, and it's winning money on that last one. Oh, and it's that average money that gets thrown in there, and then wherever it falls, there it is.
Well, the amount of times too, to where, especially when you're at the end, to where you're trying to figure out everything. 'Cause I remember T. Wade and Thorpe, when I had them on the podcast, they were talking about, I think, their first world title, or maybe their second world title. I forget which one, but there was so much juggling going on where I think Clay Smith was winning the average, and he's not going to falter. Like, that guy is going to finish. Well, he misses. Well,
Right.
Then that now bumps the guys right there where you're like, I remember when they went in the box, last team out, going behind the curtain, trying to do the math in their head with where everything was and how it was getting reconfigured on all these different avenues, and it can be, but I think luckily they knew they had to be 5'5", and they were 5'4" on a steer that run the rope.
Right.
And then I think the second one they had to be 3 something, but they had the goodie. Bam, they hit him at 3 and able to make it work. But, just talking about all the math that has to sometimes be required, because, there sometimes comes into that 10th round where there's a certain run that that you can make to do what you need to do. And to be 3, you need to know that ahead of time, because you can't go try to be safe and be 3. There's timing of when T Wade's going to have to bring that rope up. Same with Begay. There's a certain run that you have to make to be able to hit those points to make sure that you give yourself a chance. And it's fun. That's what's been fun about talking to all those guys, is getting to kind of see what it's like behind the curtain. See what goes on as guys are giving them the strategy to figure out how they're getting those gold buckles placed on their belt, because it's not just sometimes just roping and seeing how it comes. Like, there's strategy a lot of times involved that people really enjoy getting to hear, that you don't get to hear after they win the world in their 10-minute speech.
Yeah, it's fascinating, really. I mean, and it's weird how you look at it. Like we talked earlier about, there was, of those 5 championships, there was probably at least 3 of them that the ball just rolled our way. I mean, we just came out on the good side of it. And so, are you really deserving of that? Well, yeah, you placed yourself in that situation and you did your job and the ball bounced you away. And then you look at sometimes the ones that are hard is the one the ball didn't bounce you away. And there was probably 5 or 6 or 7 years that I got down to the 10th steer or the 9th. Usually it starts to shape up 8th, 9th, and 10th steer. And there was several times where I'm winning the average and I'm winning the world. All I got to do is go knock the next couple down, win the average, maybe place, on a steer or two, and the championship is mine. But something went wrong. Hickeyed had 2 years where 2 hickeyed horns and ran right to the back and split a horn. So, and then, those are for the guys. I know what it feels like to lose it right at the end when all you had to do was just go do your job the next couple rounds and you just can't get it done for some reason or another. So if you rodeo long enough, that's what was so cool to see with Andrew and Jake this year. Is like, man, Jake Long deserves a gold buckle. I texted him right after. I'm like, man, this gold buckle is so deserved. You so deserve it because you've been a world-class healer for a long time. You've been in the trenches. You've been there and you've been so close and lost it. The ball didn't bounce your way. But then it does, But that's part of it. That's the heat of the battle. That's getting in the trenches. That's being there. That's doing it. And when the smoke clears, somebody's going to win, right? And the guy that wins deserves to win because he was there. He was last man standing.
Yeah, with the amount of rodeos they go to and the NFR, and of all people with that battle in 10 days, if you at the top of that, there's no giving it. You didn't accidentally win that thing. There's a reason why so many guys are exhausted and emotional at that gold buckle ceremony because, man, there is a year. And then not just only that year, there's a lifetime before that year that went your way to where when you're seeing it, I mean, it has to be so exhausting to see because how much effort it took to get to that spot. And that's when I think of like Jake Long. It's been so deserving for so long. It wasn't that 1 year that hit. There was a lot that built up to it before that year finally went his way and that ball bounced his way.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's interesting. I listened to you and his podcast the other day. It was really, really good. Man, what a neat guy Jake Long is.
I could sit and talk team roping with that guy for hours.
I love his heart.
Mm-hmm.
Through the years, I got to have good little visits with him, but not really heart-to-heart visits. I could tell that I would have liked to have because, and to set the record straight, he told the story on me and that about me. He asked me, him popping off and say, hey, you think I should head or heel? Right. Because he's up there in a practice session and he healed about 15 for Coleman and then he headed about 15 for Coleman, all on the same horse, right? All on the same horse, the good horse that he. In fact, that weekend I tried to buy that horse and he was riding another horse that was his number one. And I tried to buy that horse just to get him out of his camp, just to save that horse, right? Not really. I'm just saying that. But I could tell that horse was a good horse. And the next week he moved him to the number one spot and rode him for 10 years. So that's a story all of its own. But he said, hey, champ, you think I should head or you think I should heel? And I said, well, it depends on if you want to win $1 million or you want to win 2 million. That's all I said. So what he takes from that is what he takes from that. He's like, well, what are you saying? He's like, what are you saying? Are you saying I'm a bad healer? Are you saying I'm a bad header? I go, I didn't say nothing. I didn't say nothing. So we've always laughed at that.
Yeah. I think we had one like that too. I think we were at Red Bluff, and I think I was riding my buckskin, and you're like, gonna ride your buckskin today? You don't think I should? No, I was just asking if you're gonna ride your buckskin today. I'm like,
Yeah.
we had a kick on that one for a long time.
I would get that more times than you would think.
I loved it because there was talking points every time we see each other after that.
Yeah. Most people, a lot of people would think through the years rodeo and interchanges like that I'd be messing with them, and I wouldn't be. I'm too simple-minded to mess with you. But you think I'm messing with you. I think one of the guys that would blow my mind is Petska, Corey Petska. I don't think he ever trusted me, because we would go back and forth, and I would tell him the truth. I would tell him because I always praised him. He was one of my top favorite healers, of all time. Just the things that he could do, that I couldn't do. I was just in amazement. And I would tell him that. I would say, man, what I wouldn't give to be inside your body and to do what you can do. And I mean, he would look at me like I was nuts. No, but I was being truthful, like I was messing with him. And I wasn't. I was being totally truthful. That guy was just hands down, And he got his championship. I was so glad to see that he got his championship.
That was deserving. That guy was a playmaker. That guy, the stuff. He reminded me a lot of Dennis Gates before that. Just the playmaking ability he could do. And like you said, to be able to see that guy get that world title, because, man, that guy did a lot in shaping a lot of what you see young kids looking at now, because his playmaking ability was legit. There were shots that only he could pull off. And he wasn't scared to try it again if it missed and figure it out.
That was just him.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen Corey Pesca throw at the third hop ever. And I've known him ever since he was 3 years old. I mean, never seen him throw at the third hop. So, and catch every one of them if he wants on the first hop. It's like just crazy talent. I was a guy from years ago, such a neat guy, Byron Wilkerson. I just loved that guy. And him and I got to be good buddies. And he had that kind of talent. And when I was amateuring and jackpotting in Arizona in the early days, I was butting heads against him. And I mean, he was as good as there was. He was like a Dennis Gates or Petska. I mean, he could just ride to the end of it and just rope them all day long on the first hop. And it's like, just challenge you to just bow up to stay with him. I mean, amazing talent.
Yeah, it's amazing the stuff that you've seen and the career that you've had, and the lives that you've touched of so many. And man, for me to have the opportunity to get to know you, get to rope with you, be able to get in the rig with you, and the friendships that we've had. One of the things we talked about earlier is rodeo, and one of the things that is the most fun was the friendships and relationships that guy gets through rodeo, and that you wouldn't get in any other career has been something that has been fun. And man, I just can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming on. And I looked up to you so much in and out of the arena, and I truly feel where God has used you in such a way that man, it's just I just love it. With the presence that you have built so much of, where guys emulated your run, but the culture that you and Big Al and Jake Barnes has helped with so many young kids now today in rodeo, that idolized you and seen and bear witness to watch how you've changed your life, and the glory now is everything to God. And that's it's great to see what you've done to this industry and so many, including me. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate you, brother.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's a good life, and it's a blessing to live it. And it's a blessing to know that, I've seen a lot of growth in you and in your faith. I still laugh so much. We did a school, and we did a church service along with the school, and the guy I forget what he was even asking you, but you're such a no nonsense, truthful type of a human being. And he asked you something, and I mean, there's 50 people sitting around you, and you're like, "Hey, you're weirding me out, man." I'm like, I wish I could have said that. And Charlie, he can say that because it was weird, man. You were weirding me out. Do you remember that?
That's the amount of times that, like, the bluntness that I hear stories now to where there's guys telling about guys that I roped with, and they told me I'd walk up to them, and this is all I don't remember it, but I believe it just in the fact of the bluntness that my dad pops out in me. Where I think I told him, I said, "Can we look at this run here just real quick, and don't take any criticism to this, but as we're watching this, what the hell are you doing?" They're like, "Do you remember telling that?" I'm like, "No, but I believe it." I didn't know how else to say it.
That's my most endearing quality about you. Because it's rare. It's actually rare.
Oh, man, I miss talking to you. I enjoyed it, partner. I appreciate it a bunch, champ.
Yeah, thank you, Charlie. God bless.
You bet. It was great catching up. All right, man. Well, good luck out west.
Thank you.
All right, buddy.
Adios.